Hello, this is Christiaan Kutlik from eGamer News, here to tell you guys about the latest stories in Call of Duty Competitive. So CWL Stage 1 playoffs just ended. It was probably some of the best Call of Duty this season. And while we will get to the Grand Finals match, I do want to talk about some of the other stories that developed in the playoffs. For me, two big things happened. One, Rise Nation was the second team to be knocked out. They lost to United and then they lost to Red Reserve. This is pretty big because Rise Nation was considered one of the top teams coming into this. They won CWL Atlanta and then they barely placed at all at the playoffs. They placed in the top 8, of course, but it was pretty surprising to see them place at the bottom. I think this was a lot to do with how Rise Nation played a lot of these games. They played a very tight, organized games, but they were playing these very flanky teams, these very scrappy teams. United and Red Reserve are kind of uneven, but they always find ways to poke holes in their opponents, and that's what allowed them to take the series off of Rise Nation. For me, it was kind of surprising to watch the Rise Nation versus Red Reserve match because you can kind of see Gunless's frustration grow throughout the series, especially in the round 4 hardpoint that Red Reserve basically stole because Josh gets this insane score streak that allows him to secure rotations and barely win the match. And after that, it was just like the team just fell apart in round 5 Search and Destroy. And because of that, they've recently released methods. They made him restricted free agent, which for those that don't know basically means they put methods behind a paywall for any other teams that want to buy him. And now Rise Nation's picked up Slasher in his place. Now some of you might be thinking, wait, was the Slasher part of Team Envious? He was. Team Envious was the first team to drop out of the playoffs. I think this is pretty close to what most people expect of a Team Envious because they've struggled a lot. Not struggled in the sense like, I don't know, GGEA Orange struggled, but more like they haven't really placed as well as you expected them to. These are all teams you kind of expect to take the championships, and Team Envious has never been near a Grand Finals match. They've never been even in a Losers Finals match. So what happened was Team Envious goes up against FaZe Clan in the Losers bracket. That was a pretty interesting match because Team Envious, as usual, seemed a bit scattered. There's a lot of times you see, especially through Search and Destroy, that players just kind of get away with just getting picks, and nobody's there to trade it out. Of course, Slasher seemed to be extremely frustrated with his teammates after the match ended because as soon as Team Envious is the first team to drop out, Slasher announces that he's leaving Team Envious. He just leaves with a single tweet. And because of that, he's now part of Rise Nation. I think this is a pretty good trade, but we'll see how things cook out because there seems to be a lot more brewing behind the scenes. Team Caliber got pretty close to the best, but they seemed a bit off towards, especially on Championship Sunday. They go up against Red Reserve in the losers bracket, and they absolutely run through Red Reserve. Red Reserve looked like glue to them. They looked like paste. And it was mainly because, again, Kenny, the free-willing SMG player of Team Caliber, was just able to do what he wants. As for Red Reserve, these are some of the best players in Europe, but they're so inconsistent. I don't think you'll see too many changes because, as Rated has stated on Twitter a couple times, he thinks there's a huge gap between the top 2 players in Europe and the rest of Europe. Basically, the best players are already on Splice and Red Reserve, and it's kind of hard to find somebody that will fill Joey and Josh's shoes. When Joey and Josh shoot hot, they are very hard, and they can tear through teams. They can tear through Rise Nation really easily, but when they're not and they're shooting kind of limply, it makes Red Reserve look really weak because they have suddenly no front line to help guard hardpoints or even pick kills. Then of course we have Luminosity. Luminosity has been seen as the all-star lineup, the biggest team probably next to Optic Gaming. The 4 best players, championship winners, and they're all on Luminosity. But then they lose to Optic and FaZe Clan. And this was pretty big. Optic had a very slow series on Sunday, and I think it was because of how both Optic and FaZe Clan played. FaZe Clan, as we'll get to a bit later, played a very flank-heavy throughout this whole playoff season, and it allowed them to kind of take out Octane first, or at least get a pick. Optic, on the other hand, played very close together and was always able to at least trade out against LG. LG kind of had problems figuring out how to play against that, especially during London Docks, which is actually their best map. And you can kind of see it, like, they get kind of pressured down, and OG just seem to know what they're doing, and FaZe Clan just caused havoc in their ranks. And speaking of FaZe Clan, let's talk about them, because they're pretty amazing. FaZe Clan took the title of Championship Stage 1 against Optic Gaming by going through the losers bracket and beating Optic twice. FaZe Clan ran through Team Envious, United, Team Caliber, and Luminosity Gaming just to get to the grand finals against Optic. And most of the series went 3-2, except FaZe Clan's first series against Team Caliber and their second series against Team Caliber. Funnily enough, Team Caliber was the team that dropped FaZe Clan into the losers bracket in the first place. But then on Sunday, FaZe Clan runs through them 3-0 like they were paper. It was pretty amazing. Of course, Azuma was named MVP, and honestly, he did deserve it. He was consistently the playmaker for FaZe Clan. He might not have made the big, show-stopping plays like Attach or Replays did during the grand finals, but he was the one opening up the map. Zuma's always had a knack for finding flanks and being able to push out spawns. This was especially useful during all their games, actually. He just had this uncanny ability to time flanks and get really inside people's head. There's a moment I remember from the second round 5 Search and Destroy where Zuma actually gets a pick onto, I believe, Karma, then he waits inside barrels for just a few seconds, and then Crim6 goes around and tries to flank Zuma, but because Zuma actually just stayed in place for a little bit, he's able to get in front of Crim6 and cut him off. And it was just because he knew Crim6 was around the corner, and he knew Crim6 was going to be looking in a different direction as soon as he noticed that he didn't see Zuma around that corner. And this allowed him to cut behind Crim6 trying to look around the other corner. Basically, Crim6 was looking out into Statue Court, Zuma was behind the barrels, Zuma just waited a second, Crim6 turned around to look back outside Statue, and then Zuma was able to cut behind and just snap behind him. It was really, really interesting, and it showed Zuma has a really good psychological game sense, more than just a map game sense. Also, he had very good awareness of just where Optic would spawn. There was this particularly interesting moment where in round 1 hardpoint, Zuma kind of pushes up through the winery area, and he's able to cut down, he doesn't get any kills, but he's able to find out Optic spawning by Main Street. And it's a really interesting play because suddenly he has all this information about where OG is going to be coming up from. Priesthood was also an extremely important player for FaZe Clan. He flexed hard and dominated the second series of games against FaZe Clan. Basically, he secured the round 1, round 4, and round 5. Because he could flex and do both the AR assault rifles and the SMGs, he can kind of chain score streaks really easily. So what he would do is he would go in, pin down Optic with an assault rifle, then switch off to an SMG and get into the hardpoint and just slay out. And then he would also jump out with an SMG or an assault rifle or whatever and get more kills. But the more interesting thing was how he used the score streaks to get him more kill streaks instead of just using them to shut down a push or just to secure rotations. And this allowed him to kind of really just have perpetual score streaks, especially in round 1. But it was a really, really interesting way to take hold of Optic. He really gave it to Optic Gaming. Then Attach made probably one of the best plays in Call of Duty World War II so far. During the Game 11 Round 2 Search and Destroy, what happened was Replays was able to get an artillery barrage, and he starts off the round by throwing out the artillery barrage. Optic is on attack and they had to plant the bomb first. And they know that Optic is going to go to the docks warehouse to bomb B. So what Replay does, he throws the artillery barrage right by the entrance to the docks, but Optic's still able to get in because they get in just right as soon as they hear the first bomb, they just jump into the docks and they are able to snap a kill onto Replace and Zuma. So now Attach is alone in this 1v3. So what he does is Attach goes around, he runs through the artillery barrage, and he gets into the hardpoint behind, I believe, Scump and Karma, and then he snaps 2 kills onto Scump and Karma. They're so shocked they don't even turn around because they're thinking, how is Attach behind us? Did he run through the artillery barrage? And that's exactly what he did. He ran through the artillery barrage and flanked them, and then he's able to secure the 1v1 against Crim6, who's off trying to flank FaZe Clan, and suddenly his team's all gone. It was a really, really amazing play. But I think Replays, who's kind of been, really deserves a lot more credit because he was able to get some insane plays. Well, one of the big ones was during round 1 hardpoint on London Docks. The first round hardpoint, not the second one. He was able to get a double kill with a grenade. Just one frag grenade and he gets 2 kills, and this is during the third set of rotations on Main Street. This allowed FaZe Clan to kind of get into the point and then secure their rotations down to Docks because suddenly Optic Game is spawning all the way by tunnel. But what Ripley says next is really interesting because instead of going to Docks with the rest of your team, he sits in statue and he's kind of watching the cut. And he actually finds Karma trying to get across and he pins Karma down. Eventually Zuma comes by and picks off Karma, but then Zuma is going down to Docks. So Karma's thinking, okay, whoever was behind statue just went down to Docks. But Replays is still there. And OG is spawning from tunnel. So what Replays does is he cuts into barrels and he actually gets a double kill. The double kill gives him streaks because now he's on a 4 streak, and suddenly FaZe Clan was down 80 points and Optic needed only 20 more points to win. So all of a sudden, FaZe Clan had like 2 perfect rotations and they're tied with Optic. So now they're going to the third barrels and the clock is running out, and Replays doesn't win his gunfight up on the stairs going up to tunnel and into barrels. But he is able to spot them out, and that allows Zuma to kind of cut out and hit Optic spawns. Optic's able to win the fight, but it allows Zuma to kind of know where they're coming from, and Attach sets up inside barrels, and then Attach kills the 1 kill that allows FaZe Clan to actually win the game, win that match. And that was a huge thing that Replays did just like by himself. I think he's just able to sustain all these other Unchained plays behind it. So all this kind of begs the question, what did Optic Gaming do wrong? And they didn't do anything very specifically wrong. I do think they made one major mistake, and that was their maps, the map bans and map picks. They really allowed London Docks 3 times in a row in their first series, and it was such a strange decision to me because FaZe Clan just ran through Luminosity on London Docks like 3 times already, and they've been playing London Docks almost all day. But here Optic is during the grand finals, they say let's put in London Docks despite FaZe Clan having run through some of the best teams on that map after warming up on it after 2 really intense games. It was such a strange decision to me to see them make that. And then I think there were some minor call-out problems, such as during that play Replays made during round 1, Karma spots out Replays, but he doesn't make the call, or at least it seems like he's made the wrong call. It seems like he kind of called out Zuma and he saw Zuma rotating down, but he didn't catch Replays there. And because of that, Replays is able to get that big flank. So it was a really interesting playoff season, and now we have the polls for CWL Seattle, but it looks like most of these teams are going to make some really big changes. Of course, there's rumors about Optic changing. Who knows if that's true, because Optic always has those rumors. But it seems like E United is going to definitely make some changes. Envious is, because they already dropped Slasher. Vice Nation has, after they already dropped Methods and picked up Slasher. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next week, because a lot of these changes have to come through before these teams head off to CWL Seattle. Granted, CWL Seattle is going to be really interesting too, because A lot of these teams won't have scrim together. I mean, sure, they've all played together a little bit, but they won't have all the callouts down like, teams normally do. And then we also have a big patch coming out on April 10th, which will basically allow really speedy game. You have unlimited sprints, and basically everybody has primed now, just automatically off the bat. Every class has primed. And so that means everybody's going to be able to run grenades, everybody's going to be able to just sprint indefinitely, and it's interesting to what we'll see come out of this. Clayster's predicted things like, oh, this game's going to look really foggy now. People like Kill has predicted like this will make the game much faster. It's interesting to see what will actually happen, but it kind of seems like assault rifles are going to be going the way of the dinosaur in stage 2. I can't imagine assault rifles doing all that well outside of search and destroy, simply because like there's going to be smokes everywhere. People are just going to be able to run at you with an SMG. And as we all know, SMGs are really powerful close range, so all of a sudden, Call of Duty World War II is a close range game. And that's it for our show today. We'll keep you guys updated on what will happen over the next few weeks in Call of Duty, because we have CWL Seattle next weekend, or rather the weekend after, and and this week is just going to be pure roster mania. So stay tuned to eGamer News, and hope to see you soon.